Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Academy of Finance panel discussion on talent development for financial industry in Hong Kong. This is our second public event under the Distinguished Speaker Series. I'm Carlson Tong, the chair of today's panel. Over the past year, Hong Kong has gone through a very difficult time with the economy being seriously hit by increasing tension between China and US, social unrest, as well as COVID-19. Whilst there's no exception for the financial industry, we do see the possibilities of resilience of our financial system and potential opportunities of our financial talents, particularly in the area of fintech, green and sustainable finance, as well as cross-border financing between the mainland and Hong Kong. Against this background, I'm delighted, therefore, that we have with us today three distinguished panel speakers from the banking sector, professional services firm, and our university, who shall share their views with us today. Let me introduce Mr. Che-Ning. Che-Ning is the Vice Chairman of Global Banking and previously co-head of Global Banking Asia Pacific at HSBC. Before HSBC, he was the Hong Kong Head of Investment Banking at Morgan Stanley. Mr. Andrew Weir. Andrew is a regional senior part of KPMG in Hong Kong, a vice chairman of KPMG China, and is global chairman of asset management and real estate, and aspect chairman of infrastructure, government, and healthcare. Andrew was formerly the chairman of the listing committee of Hong Kong Stock Exchange. And last but not least, Professor Shyy. Weir is the president of the Hong Kong University of Science and Technology, and is currently chair professor of mechanical and aerospace engineering. Prior to joining Hong Kong UST as a provost in 2010, he was Clarence L. Kelly Johnson Collegiate Professor and chairman of the Department of Aerospace Engineering of the University of Michigan. Over the next hour, I will ask each panel speaker a couple of questions before I open the panel for group discussion. And there's enough time, you can take some questions from the floor. So let's start with Che-Ning. Che-Ning, good morning. As HSBC Vice Chair and Regional Head of Global Banking, what are the gaps in the supply of local talent? And going forward, what are the important skill sets you'll be looking for with the growing demand in fintech and green and renewable finance?
Well, first of all, I want to thank Carlson and the Academy of Finance for giving me this opportunity to speak today about this very important topic of talent development for the financial industry in Hong Kong. As Hong Kong's role continues to evolve, our financial industry is assuming an even more critical role. And a strong pool of financial talent is really key to our success. We need to win the war for talent in this interconnected world. As a matter of fact, for Hong Kong, we've always produced excellent students for the financial services sector. In fact, a high proportion of our annual graduate recruits from the Hong Kong office are hired from the Hong Kong universities. Each year, our Hong Kong universities produce bright, capable, hardworking, and academically skilled students. And also importantly, they're also very good communicators. Once they're on the job, they're able to develop the requisite professional skills. And these include specific business and product skills in the banking business, as well as regulatory, compliance, and risk management skills. And these are the professional skills that are the key ingredients for success for Hong Kong. So while Hong Kong students have very strong academic credentials, I also think that in the new areas of fintech and sustainable finance, that there can be more coursework around these areas. These are newer areas requiring new skill set and also requiring a frequent update of information and materials, as these are rapidly evolving areas. In terms of technological and data skills, I think there may be a gap in knowledge relating to these areas, specifically as it relates to topical areas such as cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, and data analytics. The demand for graduates with these skill sets are growing immensely, and we need to fill these gaps. As banking becomes more digitized, these skills are going to be much in demand. Even for areas such as investment banking, for example, they will require better data mining skills to generate more up-to-date and better content and ideas for their clients. They need to monitor market trends and innovate with new products and deliver better customer solutions. One other area I think that would be useful for us to continue to grow and to develop is the soft skill set. And at the center of soft skills is the ability to learn and adapt and to have a high level of learning quotient, or LQ. This is the new Q after IQ and EQ. And it is the key for a fit for future skill set. With things changing at a far greater speed than before, and an increasingly complicated global political environment, it is crucial for our graduates to be adaptable, resilient, and creative. I would always recommend that students develop a habit of constant learning. This would include reading, traveling, as well as experiencing new things and new technology. Information is king, and the ability to gather, process, analyze, and apply information will be key to success. Creativity is about the ability to take the information available to many, but to see opportunities or issues and to apply solutions that are unique. An important part of creativity is thinking outside the box. We hear about this term a lot, but this is an extremely important skill set in this increasingly complex environment. So many solutions to our problems will require multidisciplinary approaches as well. So a curious and inquisitive mind is key, and the ability to work in teams so that we can draw on people with different backgrounds and skill sets is very important. This also relates to the diversity issue that I will touch on later on. Another key skill is that of critical and independent thinking. This is very important, especially in light of a complex world where there are financial crimes and frauds that we read about every day in the newspaper. We must develop a keen analytical framework so that we are able to determine the truth from the false. Take an IPO, for example. As a sponsor bank, the role would be to conduct thorough due diligence on a company to ensure investors will be given accurate information to base their investment decisions. It is critical that bankers are therefore able to think independently and to be able to spot fraud and to prevent fraudulent companies from listing in Hong Kong. This is obviously extremely important for the bank, as well as to protect Hong Kong's status as a financial center. We've talked about academic skills, technology skills, personal skills. One vital area, albeit not a skill, is of critical quality for Hong Kong, is that our talented people are also ethical and have strong character. Trust and character are at the center of the financial industry. It is imperative that we develop not only talented and skillful bankers, but also with strong ethical and moral framework. Ethics and characters are not skill per se, but also require development and building. There are many gray areas where the answer is not clear, and we must equip our graduates for real-life problems in gray areas where they can identify, analyze, and also deal with gray areas where ethics and character are key. So let me turn to sustainable finance. Sustainable finance is one part of a broader corporate responsibility initiative that we will call ESG, environmental, social, and governance. This is an important part of the business curriculum, and I would also recommend that this also forms a part of a newer curriculum for business schools and business graduates to study. So for example, many governments and corporates are issuing green bonds, undertaking green finance. The Hong Kong government, for example, issued a green bond last year. Many Hong Kong corporates, including the MTR, New World Group, for example, are also making ESG a core part of their strategy. And the Hong Kong financial industry are an important player in growing this effort. With Hong Kong's financial structure and regulatory framework, I also see a huge opportunity for Hong Kong in ESG. This topic now is at the top of the list for government and corporate leaders. And ESG has real life impact. Credit assessment and valuations are impacted by ESG considerations. Regulators are demanding action from financial institutions around ESG risk assessment and disclosures. And investment decisions by fund managers are also based on ESG credentials. This is a big area that will require more work and is also gaining momentum. There is still a gap around ESG and the current understanding between ESG needs as well as with the corporates. So this is one area where I think the skill set around this area will be important to continue to position Hong Kong as a financial center.
Che-Ning, thank you very much. You've given such a comprehensive reply. You have used up most of your time. And also, I think you really make some points that lay the groundwork for our discussion later on for our two other panel speakers. The points you raised, IT skills, data skills, cybersecurity skills, which I think both Andrew and Weir will be interested in, and then soft skills, creativity, inquisitiveness, outside the box, team skills, critical independence thinking, ethics. All these are very, very critical points for our future talents. And I think on ethics, I'm sure that Andrew would take a strong interest in IPO. And I think for Weir, obviously for teaching our students, our new generation of students, what are the skill set they'll be looking for? All these points you raise, I think they will be interested to respond to. So I think I will save, I've got another question for you, but I think I'll save that to see how we get on with the time. So if I may, I'll jump straight to the next question for Andrew, and then we might come back to you if you've got time. So Andrew, how did KPMG manage to work during the audit season when you can't go to your clients during the social distancing rules? And has the experience from COVID together with increasing demand for work-life balance by the younger generation changed the way your peer will operate in the future? I'm just very interested. How can you do an audit?
Well, Carlson, thank you very much for inviting me and the Academy of Finance. Wonderful to be here. And Shyy, that was a real tour de force. I think I will change a couple of things I was going to say as a result. I mean, just taking a big step back first, why does it matter? Why is it so important, auditing and financial reporting? I think Hong Kong is an international financial center. The timeliness of financial reporting, be it a listed company or be it an IPO, and an IPO pipeline is hugely important for Hong Kong as an IFC. And people may not remember, but at the time there was a big debate, should there be a delay in timeline, should there be a delay in reporting? And I think it's very well handled by the SFC and the Stock Exchange and the government to say, look, there shouldn't be a delay. Let's all make our best efforts. And if you think there may be a risk of a delay, follow the listing rules, go case by case, and let's see where we are. And it really is quite remarkable, Hong Kong compared to many other financial centers, and I include London in this. Nearly all listed companies met their deadline, their reporting timetable. This is so important that within 3 months of a year end, data is given to shareholders. and then final accounts are issued within 4 months. This is so important to Hong Kong as an IFC. So how did it happen? Well, I think, very interesting to what you were saying earlier, a remarkable stepping forward of the talent of Hong Kong. It's easy to forget that after London and New York, probably Hong Kong has the biggest pool of financial talent in the world, the biggest pool of professionals, the professional hub, and the ability, combining that intellectual capital with the great Hong Kong way of getting things done, is a remarkable story, really. So how did it all happen? Well, I think point number one was a massive commitment from the profession, be it the profession working at our clients or actually people working in the big accountancy firms, to engage with boards, engage with audit committees to say, this is the practical reality, this is the situation. And what is the timeline? What is the challenge? What's the critical path? And very quickly, we did an analysis of most of our clients and found probably 80% still found a way to do it. And the challenge was actually those companies in far-flung parts of China, how to get information. So the first thing was very active engagement with stakeholders. Second one was actually, as you say, Carlson, the physical, how to do that. And this is where we had a quantum leap forward in a couple of things. I think the first one is a big step back for an organization like KPMG, a partner, a manager, senior manager, member of staff. What truly is my role? What truly do I need to do to get my job done? And that gave to some very, very great soul searching, actually, some very detailed considerations. What truly do we need to do? And totally challenging the existing way of doing things. And so this also brought with it a huge use of technology. And so what used to be a face-to-face meeting, is it really needed? A physical stock take, probably still required in most situations, but in others, there's technical ways one can do it. How does one bring technology into the audit process, the financial process, without undermining integrity of it? So simple things like a 20-fold increase in bandwidth of our virtual people network, VPN, and a real acceleration of all the technological developments we were doing in auditing techniques. But one of the biggest challenges we had is in Hong Kong, everyone's always so keen to get the job done. How to make sure that in 3 years' time, when people look back, people see the right thing was always being done. And this is why I feel very strongly that for us, we always stress integrity, trust, and quality. Getting that right at the top of the tree in terms of everyone's considerations and not getting shortcuts to get to a task in order to get things done is really, really important. And I had a couple of expressions at that time. One was, which Carlson, you'll recognize, everything speaks. How we do everything at this bit of time will reflect on us as an organization, me as an individual, if it's me, a member of staff, everybody from a mail and chips person to the senior partner. How you behave, everything reflects at that time. And secondly, recognition that history is never kind, and that in 3 years' time, people won't remember the sheer complexities. They'll just look at the outcome. In terms of how we did it, we basically had 85% of our people working from home or at clients' premises. The use of technology, again, was quite remarkable. Trying to get the trust factor with our clients on technology is very important. And I have to admit, one of our biggest challenges is a quantum leap in the use of data, be it our own or be it our clients, necessitates a quantum leap in data security and attention to detail. And we learned very quickly that actually everyone needs to learn, sometimes the hard way, that it is being careful with one's own data as opposed to a data hack, which is really the greatest challenge. So that was very important as well. But we found that in terms of skills, this brought to light people management skills and project management skills in a totally different level to before. And you could drive a fault line through the organization to see those people who really got out of bed in the morning, called their clients, called their teams, looked at the data, embraced new way of doing things, and those who really tried to survive through the process. There's a very different thing. Other big themes which came up, just to touch on it, I think the one word is agility. And for everybody looking in, thinking about careers in finance, the ability to think flexibly and agilely, and being able to think out of one's comfort zone and think in a collaborative way has never been more important. At the end of the day, we are a group largely of accountants. There is a set way of doing things. Accountants do have a certain reputation for being very process-oriented and maybe not the quickest to change. But this required a massive injection of agility and challenging to how we're doing things. It also required, so where did judgments come? A different type of conversation. Talking about going concern, liquidity requirements, carrying value of assets. These all become existential questions for clients as opposed to academic questions. How do you handle those? How do you have the soft skills to raise difficult situations? How do you make sure the right questions are asked? How do you then validate the answers in a world which is very, very uncertain? A few other things came out of this. I think the point on sustainability is a very, very important one. All of our clients found that digital transformation and sustainability, which are two major themes they were already looking at, have now been turbocharged as issues. And these are now top of the agenda on every other aspect. So how then, working in the profession, do you ensure that you are at the right table, you have the right, as you described, base level of knowledge in these themes, which are no longer ones where you can just say to a couple of experts, please look at those. They go across all aspects of business and all aspects of clients. So again, just a fundamental shift in the expectation level of thinking, Carlson.
Yes, thank you, Andrew. And it's very interesting. I already noticed commonality between what you just said and what Che-Ning has said in his first response to my question. A new way of doing things.
New way, totally.
Agility, cyber security, data security, think out of the comfort zone, flexibility, agility. These are the new skill set that we're looking for. And in a way, the COVID has forced us to accelerate those skill sets. But when COVID is put under control, hopefully will soon, doesn't mean that we should go back to the old ways. I think the old ways are gone. It is a new way of doing things, looking at things, and it is those who can keep to the future and look at the future of doing things who will succeed. Those who stick with the old ways will fall behind. Now, I think I still got a bit of time for Andrew, a quick question, but maybe that one doesn't need a long reply because it's been covered by Che-Ning. Is in the advisory area, you usually look for subject matter experts. How important is IT?
Well, this links back to the second part of the first question, which I didn't really hit. I'll be very brief. Basically, new ways of working, Carlson. New ways of working are here to stay. There's a fault line, and on one side of the fault line is people who embrace this, understand it. On the other side of the fault line is people who haven't quite woken up to it. And the new ways of working probably doesn't involve working from home full-time, but it requires a hybrid working model between clients, home, and the office. Technology is right up there. And I would think there's a base core level of technological knowledge and know-how which is required across all aspects of our firm now. And that base level is significantly higher than before. In terms of advisory, everything from regulatory compliance to due diligence, all of these things, valuations, are heavily digitalized now. And so my advice to everybody is, look, getting up the curve on the technological skill and learning the practicalities of how to bring it to life in a work environment are super important.
Right, thank you. Now, Weir, it's all on you now. You just heard what our two speakers said, what they're looking for. So I'm going to ask you a very loaded question. Do you believe our universities are producing our graduates to meet the needs of the financial service industry going forward?
Thank you, Carlson. And first of all, as Carlson remarked in the introduction, my training is quite different from my distinguished colleagues here. I'm the one loner who doesn't have any credential in finance, and I am proud of that. Okay. And my training is aerospace engineering, so we call ourselves rocket scientists. However, I'm here on behalf of many of my highly competent expert colleagues of HKUST and in a larger sense, maybe university community. So I guess that's why Carlson asked me to join, maybe from a slightly different angle. My colleagues are, I think Che-Ning and Andrew really touched upon quite a few aspects. From a university viewpoint, I will also add that, as we all know, Hong Kong's challenge started before COVID-19. It has been going on for a year and a half now. So we, from the university, we certainly have this very acute sense of not only being challenged, but also responsibility. Namely, not only in terms of the technical training, but in terms of the whole orientation, what university education can really provide for lifetime preparation. That is a very, very difficult, very deep question. And I'm here only, I think, would like to start by saying that to us, we feel it is extremely important not only to provide updated skill set, but to make sure we leave no student behind. Okay, and because for their young age, they have many different kind of aspirations, and if we give them the proper support, then we will have brighter future for everybody. So in that sense, I think some of the colleagues of my university, for example, let me just start by showing this the FinTech Talent Development Competency and the Manpower Study. This was led by our business school dean, Professor Carlson Tan, in fact, in collaboration with many organizations here, including Hong Kong MA. And they made a highly, I think, visible report a few months ago to identify 13 key areas that Hong Kong, and in fact, the entire finance community in the world probably need to focus on. I read the list, and to me, there are a few keywords I'd like to highlight. They are also very clearly echoing what my colleague just mentioned. For example, to be able to navigate ambiguity. So the job is no longer oftentimes clear-cut. We need to understand the ambiguity to help identify and extract the necessary clarity from ambiguous situation. How to do that? We need to have two components. First of all, we need to have the data analytics skill. So to have the information clearly speak for itself. Only then can we get the necessary clarity instead of being intuitive or just guessing. That's one part. Secondly, since the environment has fast changed, we need to have the clear, necessary understanding from regulatory, environmental, and the legal aspects. So if we add all this together, we can see that the requirement for the modern education nowadays is far from being discipline-oriented. However, I also would like to add that we cannot just talk about cross-disciplinary when we don't have the right setting. We need to provide that by, first of all, not giving up the disciplinary training. We certainly still need accounting department as expertise. We still need computer science. When we talk about finance in a modern setting, we need probably all of this together. So we need a different type of the training. In addition, not instead of the disciplinary training. That's one thing I would like to stress. We need to move on multiple cylinders. So disciplinary support and education will go alongside cross-disciplinary training and support. And that is very, very important. Otherwise, we will cover a wide swath of the topics, but we may not be able to support with necessary in-depth of the education. That is one thing I'd like to mention here. And in that sense, we certainly, in our business school, as well as School of Engineering and Science, will continue to focus on existing major programs approved, supported by UGC, and Carlson is our UGC chair. Okay, so under his leadership and the oversight, we'll continue to do our best. These are important. But in addition, we need to roll out some of these highly necessary but not bounded by a single department or even single school kind of a training. I'll give you an example. One of the new programs that HKUST has introduced and going very well right now is this full-time program, which we call the Master of Science in Financial Technology. This is actually quite cross-disciplinary just by name. But in terms of this degree program requirements, it's truly cross-school. Let me just read you some of the courses we offer. There are 8 courses, total 16 credits, 2 credits each. They cover AI for fintech, blockchain, corporate finance, data analysis, financial data mining, fintech regulation and the compliance, foundations of fintech, and the investment analysis. I think some of these already naturally meet some of the, I think, mentioning from my colleagues just before me. Then, in addition, this is a 30 credit degree program. Then School of Engineering, School of Science, and the School of Business and Management each offer multiple courses. So they range from computer science oriented to data analytics, to simulation, to more business school oriented. So there will be certain electives and certain foundation and certain common requirements. So altogether, students from different backgrounds, they can join. They get this cross-disciplinary degree program, but equally important is they will meet students. They come from different backgrounds originally. So they get a chance to learn from each other in addition to learning from the courses. I think that is a very important part of the education that we are talking about. Namely, it's far beyond the formal training in that sense. The second aspect I'd like to mention is we need the diversity of the training. I already said disciplinary based as well as cross-disciplinary, but also between undergraduate and the postgraduate. For undergraduate, we certainly, first of all, need to give them the foundational training. Before they are ready, we shouldn't force them artificially to pick a cross-disciplinary nature because they need to have the foundation. However, it is probably a little bit easier for postgraduate students because they already come with some kind of accredited major background. Then they can join force to either take a cross-disciplinary training or to do a further in-depth study in a chosen field. And we support and welcome both. For the cross-disciplinary training, we need to give them further flexibility. And then we need to ask them to decide whether they would like to have a course-oriented degree or a research plus course combined degree. The formal one, the course-oriented degree, which we in Hong Kong call taught PG program. The second one with both teaching, learning, credit-based, as well as research, which we call research PG program. We certainly recognize the need for both and have been offering both types of program. In Hong Kong, under UGC, we used to focus more on our PG program, research PG program. Now recently, again, under Carlson's leadership, UGC has started to not only recognize, but to support taught PG programs with scholarship associated with that. I think that's actually very healthy. We do need to have students who either go through quicker, typically 1 year or so with the training, with certain course requirements, then they can go to join the financial sector, okay, with the necessary competency, but naturally they need to learn more with on-the-job kind of skill. For the research PG program, they have to do another piece of an independent, in-depth study. So this will be a different kind of a career track, many of them, because they already come with a lot more independent capabilities. So they can offer further in-depth kind of a contribution, more than just certain on-the-job kind of skill set. And I think with both TPG program and RPG program, the entire finance sector can be much better served, okay? Then on top of that, we have, for example, MBA and EMBA program, and Hong Kong has been doing very well in these areas. Take our EMBA program, for example. They are trained, students are trained with much broader perspective and also related to learning and the interaction. And we are fortunate that for our business schools EMBA program jointly offered with Kellogg, it has been ranked #1 in the world, 10 out of the last 12 years. Okay, so this is a kind of a unique programs, not only HKUSC, but I would say many of our sister institutions have been able to offer. Okay, so this is just another case I like to mention. Now, if we look at the cross-disciplinary program, we have some niches that each university can offer, but we also need to have a much more decisive system-wide opportunities, which will be difficult to coexist, in fact, with disciplinary-oriented programs, because disciplinary-oriented programs have certain very clear personalities, requirements, and associated with them academic structures. That's why we have schools, we have departments defined based on long history. Now, if we want to cross these boundaries, it is much better if we have a new setting. And in our case, that's partially, and actually to a very large extent, why we've decided to set up a new campus in Guangzhou. Our Guangzhou campus will be entirely disciplinary-based, cross-disciplinary-based. It will not be based on any particular discipline. We actually will not have school structure. We won't even have any department structure. Every degree program will be cross-disciplinary. For example, we will offer AI as a degree, not computer science. We will offer Internet of Things as a degree, not system engineering or operation research. So these are much more targeted. Naturally, they need to draw expertise from different schools, different departments. Then they will be fused together to have some very different kind of outlook. So to answer Carlson's question, we try to move from a very diverse range of angles. Traditional, well-established disciplinary majors, cross-disciplinary setting, training, then altogether we have a new campus that we would like to support a fundamentally different thinking and hence different kind of education. Thank you.
Wei, thank you very much. That's very interesting. In fact, one thing that came out again, obviously, is IT, fintech, data analytics, security. We are, I think, getting a feel as to what this new world, brave new world is all about. But then I think Wei makes another interesting point, is that the disciplinary skill set is still very important. We shouldn't say, oh, just throw away all those old accounting. We don't need them. Far from it. We need a strong foundation. And the data analytical skill AI actually cross all the disciplines. And then came to the next point that Wei said, is that in the past, our graduates, our students tend to do the undergraduate and go out to work. But maybe with their original training in the original discipline, a couple of years doing a postgraduate master's degree to give them the added skill set is not actually a bad way of doing it, because everything, I mean, Internet of Things, in the future, everything we do will require IT skills. So whatever you do, even a teacher, policeman, you need IT skills. So this is really the new world. Obviously for fintech, is particularly important. And I think that need to perhaps by question that I originally had for Che-Ning, but I think also applies to Wei and to Andrew. Maybe I can open that question as a question for the group but perhaps I'll let Che-Ning to speak first, because there was his original question, which I skipped, is what do you see as Hong Kong's future role as a financial center? And then what are the opportunities from the Greater Bay Area, which we hear all the time. And you heard Weir saying that they're building a new campus in Guangzhou, which perhaps will fit into this Greater Bay Area that we just mentioned. So maybe for you first, and we can open up and we can all talk about, because I think the Greater Bay Area is relevant for banking, for professional services, and for the universities. So perhaps, Che-Ning, just your response on Hong Kong future as a financial center. Where do you see us heading?
Well, actually, I'm really excited about Hong Kong's future as a financial center. I think, with the increased globalization and the interconnectivity of the world, of capital, of ideas, of corporates, basically, with operating across the globe. In the tech industry, for example, all the companies are pretty much global companies operating across the globe. So I think the future for the financial industry for Hong Kong is extremely strong. I think from a positioning standpoint, obviously Hong Kong is absolutely a leader for Asia, and it is also a globally competitive financial center alongside New York and London. So it is obviously, as the Hong Kong Exchange would say, it is a leader in the Asia time zone. We obviously are also a part of China, which is a huge economic entity, second largest economy in the world, potentially becoming the largest in 15 years. So harnessing and taking advantage of that is hugely important. In terms of the GBA specifically, I think for GBNA, this offers really a opportunity for Hong Kong that is unique in the sense that from a 7 million people market, GBA makes us a 17 million people market. We have access to 12% of China's GDP, so we're talking about a multiple of trillions of dollars of economic opportunity. So the GBNA is obviously a new initiative that is taking shape right now. But in terms of direction of travel, what we're seeing is the ability to open up essentially the financial borders between Hong Kong and China, specifically around the GBNA areas. So things like the Wealth Connect, which allows Chinese residents to invest in Hong Kong wealth management and insurance products. Obviously, already in place are Stock Connect with the investment of equity, both southbound and northbound, as well as a Bond Connect, which obviously with the inclusion of the Chinese bond market in the MSCI and the global bond indices, that will create a huge opportunity of cross-border flow. In addition, I think something that obviously HKMA and the Hong Kong authorities have worked on a lot is the internationalization of the RMB, especially also around things like digitization, creating cryptocurrency for central bank usage. So these are all, I think, big projects that will drive Hong Kong's positioning as an international financial center.
Right. I'll open to it. This is now the group discussion. I mean, Weir, Andrew, do you want to add? Andrew?
Just to say, I think Hong Kong's role as an IFC is very, very important, and I'm very positive about it as well. The FSDC, I sit on that with a number of colleagues, has a role to push Hong Kong as an IFC. And when you have a look at the IPO pipeline, the scale of bank deposits here, the fact there's still the US clearing here, there's the offshore renminbi, as you mentioned, I think it's very, very positive. And the whole wealth management, asset management aspect is still relatively early days. On GBA, I'm also very bullish on that, and I just encourage everybody to embrace it. I don't think one should look at it as a threat. It's a massive opportunity. And in many ways, the things we've been talking about Hong Kong become even more important in the context of the GBA. So the success of Hong Kong will be on rule of law, doing things the right way, top quality governance, top quality sustainability, and international best practice, harnessed, as you say, with a much broader market and economic hinterland. I think it's very positive. So you can envisage a very strong regional economy on the back of Hong Kong as an IFC and the tremendous innovation story in southern China. So I'm very bullish on that. And I think the onus is on all of us to embrace this, look at ways we can learn, and also recognize that north of the border, actually, there are some extremely talented graduates and people working. I'm always amazed when I look at our offices in Shenzhen and Guangzhou. There's real hunger there. There's real capability there. I'm not saying that's necessary competition for us in Hong Kong, but there's a challenge there to make sure that we collaborate as much as we can.
Yeah, Wei, how we like?
Yes, I very much share I think the same thought. I definitely feel that Hong Kong's internationally well benchmark system, the rule of law, and essentially very Western-based tradition is important to keep. This is important to keep not only for Hong Kong's future, but I would say it's very, very important for China's future, because especially under the current very intense geopolitical competition, I think China needs to have a common ground under Chinese, I think, territory, which can be directly connected comfortably with the rest of the world. And Hong Kong is unique in that regard. So I really feel that part is something we should take comfort and we should feel confident that is going to stay, because it is very, very important to everybody. Then the other thing, on the other hand, we should also be mindful is there are many very fast-moving innovation in China, in mainland China. Sometimes we have to really appreciate and respect the pace and the willingness of trying new things without stopping, feeling comfortable with where we are. That part, China, mainland China is doing very exceptionally well. Just look at the cashless payment and some of the fintech activities. Certainly, we need to understand and appreciate different, perhaps different legal and regulatory systems. That's very important. If we want to be part of the greater movement, we need to appreciate and understand. They are shared interests. There are also different framework and different systems. That, I think, is very important for the education sector and the business sector to really join forth, because we can only provide mostly foundation. Some of the very important practical regulatory kind of content. We need practitioners. We need enterprise to let us appreciate it. And also, it's important for our members to be able to go to the other side of the border, to have that touch and feel and immersion firsthand. Then I feel we can do better together.
I mean, Wei, do you feel that there is at present a good enough relationship between the business sector and the universities? Are we are we being informed as to how university, what type of graduates they should come out with? And also, I think we need the support of the industry side, like, for example, exchange program, internship.
Yes.
Do you feel you're getting enough help from the industry?
Of course, there's never enough. But that's, I think it's not one way. I feel we can do much better, much more substantially, because by and large, this is nothing unique to the finance sector. In my own field, when I was in the States, it's a similar thing. The company will come and tell us they really need to have a new skill set, open-ended learning, more of soft skills, and so on and so forth. This actually very much just was repeated in this particular session. So in that sense, the need has been identified years ago. The question is, how can we deliver that? Because it is not feasible to add all this additional skill set. Then I always tell my industry partners when I was department head, you keep asking me to add all this. Where can I subtract? They said, no, whatever you are doing is very good. Don't delete anything. I just want you to do more. That's not realistic, but it's more than just quantitative. The important thing is we need to have this kind of mutual engagement. Soft skill cannot be lectured. They're best learned in practical setting. When they have some real project to work on, to see real people, not just professors, okay? Then I think students' motivation and the interest will be at a different level, okay? This is what I feel even more important than internship and joint project, okay? We need to have this kind of challenge given to us in actual cases, okay? Why internship is very much valued? Because students can go there to have a very different taste. Okay, this is the part I think we cannot stress more, because we should go beyond future employer and the future employee expectation, right? Because if we can produce more effectively, better prepared future employees, that gap can be shortened much more naturally.
So KPMG, HSBC, you now heard what is required of you. Maybe with your postgraduate master program, they could be assigned projects and work with the different industry sector. That would be the best way to find a lot more, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think Wei's point about engagement, I think, is really the key. And maybe we need to rethink the traditional way of just internships and exchange programs, but even a closer collaboration of maybe even on a project basis, as you mentioned.
Yes.
Professor, on working on important things. And there are some new aspects around, for example, AI or ESG that lends itself, right? Because it's so new to everybody that we can actually look at ways to work together.
Yes, I remember in my KPMG days, good old days, when you have intern, you make sure that they don't get into anything that will cause trouble. You keep them safe. So in fact, they do want something challenging rather than just doing very safe things, right, Andrew?
But Carlson, having heard this, and Wei, I've become your new best friend saying this, I think business needs to have a fresh look at how business engages with universities. Where are these conversations taking place? Who is having them? Are they through the old lens as opposed to the new reality we're facing? And I think Carlson raised a really good point. Artificial intelligence and sustainability, we're all learning. And so a different type of conversation probably makes sense.
Yeah. Now I've got another question for the group. We heard all about this new ways of working. And the younger generation, do you know what they're asking for? Work-life balance. In fact, we heard different banks coming out to say that we are going to allow more flexibility, work from home. So what's the challenge to your organization? I think it applies to all of you. With this new demand from our younger generation, how do you keep people motivated? How do you motivate them? And what sort of development program you have if they all work from home? How do you develop them so they can go through there's a lot is learning on the job, right? On the job learning. But if you don't see them face to face, that's going to be quite challenging. So again, I put it to all of you. What do you think about this work-life balance? Che-Ning, yes.
No, I think first of all, I think I think the key is the work-life balance, and I think it's not really so much work from home as flexible working arrangements, right? So I think so you talked about hybrid working arrangements. So I think people crave for interaction with their colleagues and the team camaraderie and the spirit and the learning of each other and the bouncing of ideas of colleagues. But they also want to, spend time with the family. So it is more about flexible working arrangements. So what at HSBC, what we've just introduced is the ability for staff to work at home for part of the week, and then also to be able to obtain subsidies for purchasing home office equipment.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we wouldn't expect people to be work completely solely from home. I think on flexible arrangement, it's about really allowing staff not to be at their desk, 9 to 6. So it's allowing us,
or maybe longer than that,
or 9 to 9.
I won't say anymore.
No, but people want to schedule their own activities, right? So a young family, a mother might want to go pick up the kids, put them to bed, and then work at night.
Yes.
So what we've done is made arrangements to allow young families, for example, right, to have flexible working.
Yeah. Andrew's laughing because in an accounting firm they have got a reputation on work-life balance.
You say work-life balance is you work very hard till you're 55, then you do nothing. But no, I think this is the big issue, and I think, Carlson, now the jury has given its verdict that there has to be work-life balance. Yeah. I think it's more work-life integration, and I think we as employers have to support and trust people. One of the most important things to come out of the virus is everybody's had to trust people in how they look after their time. The vast majority of people always want to do the right thing, and we have to trust our people. But I think the key is the agility, and we just have to accept that every individual has a different style. But there's a very interesting study which came out in UK recently about the negative aspect of working from home. People miss the engagement and miss the social things. So something I'm very worried about, I'm sure my fellow panelists are, is well-being and mental health. And increasingly, offices are becoming touch points for engagement and socialization, and less needed actually for getting a day job done.
Yeah. Wei, I mean, is there going to be a new way of teaching in the future? Is it all going to be e-teaching?
E-teaching, we certainly have learned a lot, and we are maturing much better now. But the important point made just now in terms of the entire life on balance. So it's much more than just which mode you teach. It is the whole person, especially in a university, not to mention K-12, even more critically, you're at a formative stage. You need to have the antenna out. You need to have the exposure and the interaction, and so you can sense from human to human, more than just looking at this way, right? So to us, in terms of the teaching, compared to, say, earlier this year, now we still do most of the teaching, say, in mixed mode, but many students, in fact, choose to take online mode, even though they are on campus. So that actually very much reflecting the agility and the flexibility part. But if we look beyond that, I think the balance between work and life, or between learning and outside classroom learning and living, is to make everybody feel it's interesting. If you feel interested, you don't mind whatever way you call it work or non-work. It doesn't matter. So the trick is to make work more like living, right? And you look the U.S. companies, especially in the Bay Area, many of them try all kinds of tricks, right? To provide all the free food, all the free drinks, even free gyms and the free pet service. The point is to try to keep you at work, so you don't have to worry about anything else.
Yes.
So that is another angle. It's not so much of the hard divide.
Yeah.
And the young people certainly very much care to have a say in how they run their routine and schedule.
Yeah.
That part, I think we certainly need to accommodate.
Yes, I mean, that's very interesting. I mean, before I wrap up the group discussion, because we do have a few questions from the floor, well, I'm taking away my takeaways. I think Hong Kong still has, despite the concern, still has a very bright future as a financial center for Asia, for China, obviously, and reaching out to the rest of the world. I think Hong Kong acts as a bridge between the outside world wanting to invest into China and China wanting to reach out to the outside world. In fact, with the worsening trade relationship between US and China, Hong Kong actually has got a very important role to play. But we need to up our our skill set, up our game. The old days we've done well. I mean, we've come a long way, but then we need to, I think the COVID-19 has actually brought, accelerated the challenges in a way. I mean, it has opened our mind as to what we need to do. And so we're being fast-tracked into the brave new world. And it's important that we keep up with that to make sure we don't fall behind. So I think that's very interesting. And we heard about the skills we're looking for, the IT skills, the personal skills, the leadership skills, all those are important. So I think on that note, I would sort of wrap up the group discussion. I'm exactly on time. I've got a number of questions from the floor, so maybe I can put it to you guys to see how it can best be answered. The first one is definitely for Weir. It said there's been recent news report about students withdraw from schools in Hong Kong, obviously including universities. Even the more prestigious schools seem to be facing the same problem. Is Hong Kong facing a risk of brain drain? And what do you think can be done to mitigate this risk? So, Weir, do you want to answer that?
Yes, I can say a few words. First of all, yes, we are seeing some students who choose to move out of Hong Kong. We certainly have seen some. We also have seen drops in terms of the non-local students applying to Hong Kong. So this is one side of the situation, which is unfortunate, but hopefully in time, we will see the trend reversed. I do not equate this to brain drain, on the other hand. The reason is very simple, because for years, we have far more qualified applicants than the slot we can provide. So we don't have concern about students who are admitted to our university who are not qualified. That's not the concern. Sometimes we have so many applicants for one position that is not the situation. Secondly, in areas like fintech and certain very fast-growing majors, the growth actually is accelerating in terms of the interest. So it is really the key thing to me is we do our job right, we continue to improve and to reinvent, we will be fine. And we certainly must address our current social situation so we can make sure all members in Hong Kong feel supported in some way.
Right. I mean, generally, for Andrew and Che-Ning, do you see there's a brain drain from your organization, people leaving?
I think I feel very strongly about this, actually, that there is no brain drain. A couple of consul generals actually came to see me to ask how many people are leaving, what are contingency plans, how many clients are leaving Hong Kong. And when I said nil, they were a bit disappointed, actually. There is no brain drain, but there's a big change going on. And it goes to what you've been saying, is that the days of a generalist, if you're an international person, you're a generalist, become more specialized. If you're in the finance industry, what is your specialism? What is your expertise? So in many ways, Carlson, actually one's moving up the curve. Right. So I don't see a brain drain at all. And I think the comments about brain drain are scaremongering.
I would certainly echo what Andrew said. No evidence of brain drain and no evidence of actually finance as an attractive proposition for graduates and for our international bankers to come to Hong Kong. I would say the reality is banking has become a more difficult industry with the quantitative easing and with the low interest environment. So competition now is around the quality of your service, your idea, the ease by which you provide your service, and all the things that we talked about, right? So it's not about the ability of a bank to be able to lend somebody money, right? Actually, money is plentiful, right? So it's how you deliver the service proposition and how clients value your service as a bank, right? So that really goes again to upskilling.
More competitive, right?
More competitive, and it's not about just providing a loan, right? Or raising funding.
Right.
It's the experience, it's the idea.
Its interest rate is so low now. If I want to borrow some money, right? Right. My second question, which in fact both Che-Ning and Andrew can answer. What do you think about the quality of the existing student pool in Hong Kong? Is there any shortcoming? How do you think the quality can be raised? Right, Che-Ning?
Well, as I said in the opening remarks, is I think Hong Kong actually has extremely strong academic student pool, and it's also been able to attract some very good international students through programs like the Kellogg MBA program, which are excellent. So I think really I would say that for upskilling or upgrading, it is about keeping very much abreast of international developments in finance. So these are the things like blockchain, like cryptocurrency, cybersecurity. You really having developing a pool of talent, because what will happen is the few talented or knowledgeable graduates will get snapped up, and then there will be a big bidding competition, right, for a very small pool of talent. So we must broaden that pool of talent, right? That's the first thing. I think the second thing is really continuing to upscale the basic language skills, our knowledge of the global environment, our knowledge of China, the policy that are driving these developments. Really staying on top of these aspects. I think it's really because finance is changing so fast and it's so dynamic that just knowing how to run a DCF or knowing understanding the basic of finances is no longer sufficient.
Andrew, sorry, Andrew, I remember KPMG used to recruit a few hundred graduates a year in Hong Kong. So you must have lots of experience of graduates.
We're still doing it. It's still a war. It's still a war for talent. Anybody dialing in wants to apply, let me know. I totally agree with the previous remarks, but I don't think there's any problem with the talent pool in Hong Kong. The challenge is us as an organization articulating a bit more clearly what we need, and we are shifting much more to broad-minded people. We're shifting more to STEM. We do need obviously accountant graduates, but an accountant graduate these days needs to be a very broad-minded accounting graduate, and all the things which have just been mentioned need to be considered as part of that syllabus. So we still back the university students in Hong Kong.
Now, this leads us perfectly into the third question, which is very interesting. It said that with the broad skill set required of the next generation financial talent, do you think students from the engineering school may be possible financial talent or from other disciplines? I mean, Weir is a perfect example. You are an engineering graduate. And I think my question is that would KPMG, HSBC recruit someone with an engineering degree into your business?
Oh, interesting. We've got a couple of partners who are engineer graduates, and they're very good. And I mean, the skill set and the discipline of being an engineer and the background, it lends itself to many things. And I think finance is one of them. I would support that.
I would say that, there are two aspects. One are obviously engineers who are trained as engineers, but then want to work in banking. And obviously, I think the training of the engineer is very well suited to a banking career around analytics, around data, and so on. But also, within big financial institutions, there's actually plenty of opportunities for engineers as engineers. So the infrastructure, the data centers we have to build, the VPN, 100% of our staff worked in lockdown at home. I mean, that is a huge, we thought there would be a problem, but actually our infrastructure withstood that challenge. And that's all down to our engineers doing a great job. So there are opportunities for engineers within big financial institutions because so much of of the work now involves, you know, engineering knowledge, and actually also that needs to, you know, coincide with, you know, the regulatory aspects of, you know, data privacy and so on.
Yes. I mean, in fact, I was just say earlier, if you've got engineering undergraduate degree, you can spend a year doing a postgrad on data analytics, right?
Yeah,
I mean, so that would be attractive as well. Now, the next question is, how would the quality of being able to develop relationship, internal, external, probably more external, with customers be viewed by the speakers, particularly Che-Ning? So someone's interested in applying for a job.
Where's the resume?
So this is developing.
Relationship. How do you how much importance, significance do you attach to that?
I think the starting position is adding value for the client. Right. So the starting position has to be that you're very good at what you do. You understand the client's business extremely well, right? And you're able, through your own analysis, right, to tell the client actually something he might not even be aware of.
Yes.
So this goes to data analytics, right? So, you know, for example, at HSBC, we can look at the client's trade flows and say, hey, did you know that you traded this amount, you know, with this country? Did you know you had this foreign exchange exposure, for example, right? So I think the starting point is, you know, being very good at what you do. So this goes to the basic skills. Then you need to know the client very well so that you're able, you know, to add value for the client. So the client actually really values your advice and input. And then the soft skills, right, around being empathetic. You know, a lot of clients are going through a very difficult time in the COVID, right? So having that empathy around, you know, their situation, and, you know, acting as the bridge, right? So that, you know, you're able to both account for the bank's interest as well as the client's interest if they're in difficulty. Right. So it's really a lot of different skill set that will make a, you know, a good banking relationship.
I think that's very well put. Basically, what we're saying is that you might have the gift of the gab. You know, you can really talk, and you might be a good salesman. But at the end of the day, you must understand what you're selling. You need to know your stuff. Only until you know your stuff, then you need the relationship. But the relationship cannot be by itself alone. That's what we're saying. So for all our future financial talent, you must know your stuff, the technical stuff. But then if you are completely, you know, you don't communicate, then you're not going to be very good at it. You could be a backroom person doing research, but you can't come out to intermix with client because you don't have the social skills. But the one thing which is most important, everything you do, you need to know your stuff. Right? I think that is the key advice we can give to our future students or future financial talent. Now, I've got another question here. Is one concern for many Hong Kong professionals working in global financial services institutions is that the career future lies mainly in Hong Kong, China, and the East Asia region. How can we further promote the development of Hong Kong talents become global leaders? That's actually very true. I mean, you see a lot of Indian being global leaders, CEO in many sort of large multi-conglomerate IT institution, but not so much from Hong Kong, although we've got many very talented people. Why is that the case?
I think it's a very good question, and there's no logical reason why it should be the case. It requires a mindset change, possibly. Do we do enough going to New York, London, Paris, and all these cities and say, this is the Hong Kong story? This is the East Asia story. This is the Asia. Do we go to the boardrooms? Do we push strongly enough secondments in our organizations? I think it's a very good question, and we should really push it harder because there's a fantastic story here and there's huge talent. I think also part of this is, I think it's fair to say, whichever way you look at it, Europe and the US have become a bit more insular. And Asia is seen as a success story and almost as a standalone success story. So I think we probably need to knock on the door a bit more. And maybe it's something the Academy of Finance and the Financial Services Development Council could do something about. I think it's a fair challenge.
I mean, Che-Ning, what do you think?
I guess what I would observe is, obviously, many of the major global corporates are, U.S. or European companies. But what we are seeing now, is the coming of some really international leaders in Chinese companies and Hong Kong companies. So, maybe companies that are that operate internationally but based in Hong Kong with a big part of its business in China. So, these companies will require a skill set that is, very, extremely knowledgeable about, the Asia region or the specifically the Greater China region, but with all the soft skills as well that we talked about. So I think what we'll probably see is, a generation of leaders that are, that are from Hong Kong or from China, leading global companies, but with a center of gravity that is, more Greater China.
Right. Okay. I think on that note, it's perfect timing. That's all we've got time for. I just want to thank you, all of you, for taking the time and sharing your thoughts with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.